Hey guys, it's Jeff. So the first week of Joe Biden's administration has been off to a busy start. He's already signing executive orders, and we are beginning to see signs of things to come in the future of the Joe Biden administration. So in this video, I want to talk about what he's doing and things that we can do to prepare to hopefully head off or make some of his efforts a little bit more complicated in regards to the Second Amendment. Coming up after this. All right, guys, I'm back. So this week we've seen Joe Biden. This is his first week in office, not even a first full week in office, but his first week in office, and we're already starting to see him start to sign executive orders into place. Now, he hasn't touched on the Second Amendment yet, but what we normally see when presidents come into office is we see a slew of political favors, a political payback, and that sort of thing. So what can we expect to see in the future based off of what we've seen in these first few days? Well, we can expect to see that Joe Biden is going to take some of these campaign promises and he's going to start acting on them. He got a lot of money from contributors like Bloomberg and EveryTown and all of these anti-gun political action committees, and now he's going to start making good on some of these promises. So this week we've seen him take actions on the XL pipeline. We've seen him take actions on the census. We've seen him take actions on respecting people in his administration. We've seen him take actions on COVID-19. And now what I expect to see in the next couple of weeks is actions on the Second Amendment. And what are we going to see when it comes to the Second Amendment? Well, we'll see the importation bans of firearms. We'll see the importation bans of ammunition, Wolf and Bear and some of these other brands that you've become accustomed to getting at inexpensive prices. We'll start to see those being banned. And he is perfectly within his authority to do those through executive action. Now, it's going to take a little longer for the legislation to make its way through the House of Representatives and through the Senate and then on to be signed into law. But do expect that through executive action, he's going to do as much as possible. So what can we do, right? So we're moving into these troubled waters when it comes to legislation that we're going to start seeing coming out of the Biden administration. So what can we do in order to get ahead of some of that? Well, obviously, contact your state representatives, contact your federal representatives, your senators. You can email the executive office. You can email the White House and let them know how you feel about these sorts of things. Obviously, you can join organizations. Now, there's a lot of organizations out there, and there have been a lot of controversy around a lot of organizations, namely one 3-letter organization. But anyway, these organizations are out there. Even the one that's controversial is still out there doing some good work. So what are the arguments that they're going to use against you? Whenever you contact your legislators and you start talking to them, what we see them say through the national media is you can't yell fire in a crowded theater. Well, you can yell fire in a crowded theater if there's a fire in the crowded theater. You can't cause a panic that would knowingly cause injury to others, right? You obviously can't do that if you know that what you're about to do is going to cause injury. That came out of situations where people would yell fire in a crowded theater, there would cause a stampede, people would get injured or hurt or even killed, and so they passed legislation to prevent that from occurring. Now, that legislation is for that specific case. That is free speech. You can yell fire in a crowded theater. You can own a gun, regardless of the kind. You just can't use that gun to hurt someone. But what they do is they use, you can't own just any old gun as a way of projecting a psychological adherence to a standard, right? You can't own an RPG. What kind of silliness is that? You can't own a machine gun. What kind of silliness is that? Well, you can own a machine gun. They're just very expensive because of legislation that was passed in 1986. But you can't own a machine gun. It's not against the law to own a machine gun. So what they do is they manipulate the language and they manipulate the words, and you have to hone your responses to these kinds of conversations. So when they try to use this, you can articulate your position better than they can articulate their positions. And what that does is it strengthens the argument and it forces them to go back and do their homework. So when they try to pass these laws, they don't look like buffoons to the American people when they pass stupid language about barrel shrouds and not knowing what the hell a barrel shroud is, right? So And then the next thing you can do is understand some of the language that they're using, and you can see this already in the Biden gun control plan. They're trying to minimize the number of suicides, right? So they want to control firearms because they feel they've made this. They've looked at the numbers just like the rest of us have looked at the numbers, and they know that the majority of people that die by firearm die because of suicides. So let's prevent suicides by reducing the number of guns, right? But what they don't think through these complex issues and say, well, maybe the person who's going to commit suicide won't just use a gun next time. They'll jump off of a building, or they'll jump off of a bridge, or they'll go stand in front of a semi truck, or lay down on a train track. They don't think through these complex issues. They just fixate on a single item, and then they just drive that into the ground. Now, another one that they're using is domestic violence. That they don't want that the majority of women that are injured by a domestic partner are injured with a firearm or killed with a firearm. So you're doing it for the women, right? We got to protect the women instead of empowering and enabling women to be self-defenders, to be self-reliant, and not be dependent upon a spouse or the artificial spouse of a government. They want to put controls in place so that we're protecting the women, right? That's the kind of nonsense thinking that comes out of these silly people's minds. But regardless, when you're talking to them, you gotta try to convince them. You gotta try to sway them. I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but when you're trying to convince your audience or sway your audience's opinion, you can't use abrasive or aggressive language, because it just turns them off and they won't listen to what you have to say. And then the last item that's really most controversial to me is you're doing it for the children, right? Whenever you have a controversial topic like reducing or removing someone's rights to own something, they always use you're doing it for the children as if you want to harm children, or everybody that doesn't agree with you is inherently wanting to harm children. That's just the absurdity of these people and the way they approach these conversations. So you can insist on a clear adherence to the Second Amendment, but do so in a respectful way. Also know that Joe Biden has already stated that he's going to try to pack the courts. Now, he's walked that back a little bit, and he wants to convene a committee to study the issue, right? More intellectual process of understanding what the impact of packing the courts actually means. And so he wants to convene a committee of opposite groups and representative groups so that he can have that report back on his desk, so he can put forth a recommendation on how to best pack the courts, how to best get what he wants out of the courts. So when he goes and he tries to pack the courts, he'll have this committee result or report to show that what he was doing was done in a bipartisan way. It's very skillful as somebody who's been in public office for almost 50 years. This is a manipulation of the public in a way that he can manage the message. When he goes to do something that is underhanded, he can do so with the backing of this committee report, right? So, pay attention to that if it actually does come into existence, that the wheels of change are in motion, and if you let it be known that you're not satisfied with what's going on. So pay attention, that's coming. Another thing that you can support, and obviously you've got multiple layers of efforts that you can do as the individual. You can contact these non-governmental organizations that I mentioned earlier. You can contact your representation, your senators, your representatives in the state and federal houses. You can contact the White House. You can contact your city council, contact your sheriff, contact all of these elected officials, and stay active in your community. But there's another effort that you can support, and that's a Convention of States movement that has been started. And it started under the Obama administration, or it really started to gain steam under the Obama administration, because we see a lot of the efforts to control society and control the American people coming out of the coast, the East and the West Coast. You could support these efforts on these Convention of States that are gaining some traction. And if we can get a Convention of States where we can get a majority of the states to agree to reduce the federal powers of the government, then we could see a return to freedoms and liberty that this country was founded on. It was one of the values is being a free country. And we've seen that erode over time to the point now where it's a tug of war of ideas, that you have one side that feels like government does everything better, and you have another side that isn't even representative of the government that's in place, that feels like the individual can do a better job than the government can. And the Republicans used to be that party, and I really question if they're just not, two sides of the same coin anymore. But they're the closest thing, or they pretend to be the closest thing to a freedom-loving party that we have in the U.S. So anyway, guys, what do you think about my comments on this? Do you agree with what I'm saying? Do you have anything you want to add? Is there anything that you would think that would do better to help protect us? I am concerned moving into 2021. I think that there's going to be a totalitarian effort by these tyrants, these weak-minded people, to put more restrictions in place, and I just don't see us becoming a freer country because of it. So what do you think? Am I wrong? Am I being an alarmist? Am I using fear to incite motivation? Or do you think that there's a legitimate concern? Is there other things that you would recommend to people who may read these comments that would be of some benefit to us as a group of gun owners? Let me know. Throw it in the comments section. Let's talk about it. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed yet, please consider a subscription. Subscriptions really motivate me to continue to make this kind of content for you guys. I'm working on some other stuff. I've got some reviews coming, so stay tuned to that. Picked up a SIG M18. I picked up a new belly band holster. That was a popular video I did for the larger folks that watch these videos. So stay tuned for those. Those videos are coming as well. Follow me on my other social media. I'm on BitChute. I'm on Rumble. I'm on MeWe and Parler if it ever comes back. Moving away from Instagram and Facebook. I think they've abused their powers for too long, and I think we need to start to diversify our exposures. Until next time, guys, take it easy, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.